Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of LaGrange on Wednesday, June 28, 2023. I think it's some special day, the last day of the year. So here we go. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll be prayed on by Holly Winter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the support received by gifts, prosper in our labor and that we may become true in the good series, as if we find objects of learning, and our services to our community in the Lord, in fellowship with the Creator and Sustainer of all life.
Thank you, Holly. Kelsey will come and introduce our guest.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce our guests. Please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all guests have been introduced. Our first guest is Cheryl Mackey, guest of Barbara Hennigan. Our next guest is Louis Powell, guest of Shannon Johnson with the Troup County Archives. Next we have Tara Ogletree, also known as Chef Tara, guest of Susan Ferguson. Next we have Zachary Taylor, guest of the Pub. Next is Kiara Williams, guest of John Harrow with Twin Cedars. And lastly, we have Beth Hudson, guest of Jake Jones with the Graham Law Firm. Welcome.
Thank you all for being here. John Harrow would like to make an announcement.
Same thing, briefly. Excuse me. Last week I handed out some of these, the sponsorship packets for our 5 days in September. And thank you for everybody that took one and is looking at sponsoring a team, either yourself, your agency, corporation, whatever. I put something that's a little bit easier to take with you on your tables this time. There's a QR code on the back that will take you to this packet. So everybody take a card. If you don't already have a sponsorship packet, put it in your pocket. Go back to your place of business, your family, your church, or anything else, and let's all sponsor a team. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Big announcement, no meeting here next Wednesday because of the 4th of July. Main thing you need to remember, though, is the first thing for the new year is the 4th of July parade, which is on what day? July 1st. It's on Saturday. So this Saturday is the first thing for the new year. Where is it going to be at? It's going to start in a new place. It's going to start at LSPA and go to Sweetland, not the opposite, where it used to start at Sweetland. It ended Sweetland. Now it's starting at LSPA. So if you start at Sweetland, you're going to miss the parade. So go to LSPA. It starts at 10. So what time do we need to be there? 9 o'clock. What do we need to wear? James, stand up. Sandra, stand up. If you have a shirt, you may have one of our shirts from olden days that is like that color. So if you have that shirt or one that looks that blue, wear that. If not, Sandra, stand up. This is the other shirt you may have, a kind of a fishing shirt for Rotary. So if you have that one, that's also good to wear. So if you don't have any of those shirts, still show up, because the main thing is they give you a nice bright red sash that identifies you as a, what do we call it when we do this?
Marshals.
Are we marshals?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're the marshals. And so what we do is we walk along with the parade, because it is a kid parade, and we want to make sure they're all safe and sound and nothing happens to them. So it's a, yes, Barbara, you want to raise your hand?
Yes, and you always have to make sure that you're getting a great big picture for the group picture, because we use it every single year. You don't want to miss out on that, you want to be in there.
That's correct. And so if you go to Sweetland first, you're probably going to miss the picture. So make sure you go to LSPA, be there by 9. We usually take the picture, we have time to get our sashes, take the picture a little bit before the parade starts, and then assign how we're going to line up and go down the parade.
And
Okay?
I will actually be out of town, so someone else will have to coordinate the picture and be the back.
Oh, no, the July 1st parade is canceled. Susan is gonna, there's no way it's
You
going
can
on.
handle it.
No, there's no way, sorry. Maybe next year. July 1st, Saturday, not July 4th, but no meeting next week. Okay, everybody got that? Welcome Scott Landa back. He's got a nice story to tell. Also, remain in prayer for Sandy Lee and for Oren Trotter. And if you probably know about them, but just keep them in your prayers. We have time for happy dollars before we do some Paul Harris Awards. Anybody happy and have a dollar? Apparently.
We're all broke.
It's been a while.
Because I don't have a symbol, I have $5. I learned this morning that Barbara Hennigan celebrating 20 years in Rotary this coming Friday, that's here and in New York, right? So congratulations on 20 years in Rotary.
Yeah, I forgot to mention she would be here after she promised she'd be gone. So nice that Barbara's still here, but she is heading out for sure this weekend. So
Right.
you have one last chance to give her a hug and say thank you before she hits the main. Okay, Carrie, we now have time for some Paul Harris fellows.
And some of you heard some of this last week. The acknowledgement of being a Paul Harris Fellow is a way for the Rotary Foundation to show gratitude for a significant contribution made to its charitable and educational programs. This recognition is named after Paul Harris, a lawyer from Chicago who, along with 3 business associates, founded the organization in 1905. To qualify as a Paul Harris Fellow, an individual must make a direct or cumulative donation of $1,000 or more to the annual program fund, Polio Plus Partners, or the Humanitarian Grants Program, either personally or on behalf of someone else. As contributions reach subsequent $1,000 levels, additional recognition in the form of a pin with corresponding stones is given. Paul Harris once expressed the belief that those who seek the good in others will be rewarded, as others will also find the good in them. He emphasized the importance of loving our fellow human beings, stating that those who do not are the most helpless and lonely creatures on earth. Today, it brings us great joy to present these symbols of appreciation to, and if you'll come up, Patty Youngblood, Paul Harris Fellow +2, Judy Freeman, Paul Harris Fellow +2, and Morris Jones, Paul Harris Fellow +1. And our Bill Honeycutt's not here? Yep, come on, Morris. And Coleman is not here, correct? All right, so please stand and join me as we recognize each of these people. Thank you so much.
Just a tad bit.
This one?
So that way the road is. All right, perfect. 1, 2. All right, thank you, guys.
Let me check my list one time, make sure we've got everything before I turn it over to Judy Wagner, who will introduce our presentation.
Freeman.
Freeman!
Oh, how many years? 15 years.
15?
It's your last one.
Last day. Sandra Bowie's gonna shoot me.
I was talking about the light.
I'll answer to just about any name, and I was telling the story this morning that whenever Clark introduced a married woman, that he always included their maiden name.
That's what.
That's okay. That was Adams, by the way. So we're honored today to have our second program in the history of our great club. And we're continuing to celebrate, of course, our 100-year anniversary year. And all of you know Shannon Gavin Johnson, but let me tell you a little bit that you may not know. So Shannon graduated from Stanford University with a degree in history, and she holds a Master of Library and Information Science from the University of Alabama. What I learned that I did not know about Shannon is that she came to LaGrange through an internship with the archives, and so I'll take a step away from the introduction and really encourage anyone who can do internships for students with their nonprofit, their company, anything. They are so very important for many reasons, not only for the intern, but for our local organizations to get people here to LaGrange. So we're glad that Shannon was able to do that. Since her internship, she started working full-time, and since 2017, she served as the executive director of the Troup County Archives. And she is a member of many local, state, and national historical societies, including she is the Troup County historian, serves on the City of LaGrange's Downtown Historic Preservation Commission, and is chair of the Troup County Historic Preservation Committee. So I was asking Shannon if she knew her husband, Horace, before she came here as an intern, and I learned the true story. That she was already working here full-time when Forrest came in to the building with his brother Christian and another Rotary link with a Georgia Rotary Youth Program person named Tom Humberstone. I don't remember Tom, but many of you may. And they were there to go to lunch with Clark. And so she was introduced to Forrest. Well, lo and behold, Forrest started volunteering with the Troup County Archives, and he even helped her with an exhibit, and then they married. And so Forrest adopted her daughter, Hardy, and they have since had a young son whose name is Forrest Clark Johnson V, but who they nicknamed Gunner for her grandfather, who was a gunner during World War II, and also a link to one of Forrest's favorite soccer teams. So thank you for agreeing to do our presentation of our second historical presentation, Shannon Gavin Johnson.
Thank you, Judy. I have to begin by saying that I am woefully underqualified to present this information. We all know who should be here, who we wish was here. Most, I would say everything that we know about the gentlemen and ladies who have served in the capacity of president of LaGrange Rotary Club was carefully researched by one of our own presidents himself. And in truth, much of what we know about the entire of Troup County and her people was because of Clark Johnson's painstaking research. He has left a significant gap in not only our hearts, but certainly in our history. And while not a replacement, Lewis Powell is certainly as eager and enthusiastic and as dedicated to Troup County history as Clark was, and he is building off of Clark's foundation with his own research. So without them, this presentation would have been really, really short. When considering the past 102 presidents of the LaGrange Rotary Club, it could quickly read like the who's who of LaGrange citizenship. Add into that Clark's research, and the list looks like his personal family tree. Based on this list, the qualifications of a Rotary president must include having served in at least 3 high-ranking industrial positions, 4 governing bodies or boards, and be akin to at least 6 other Rotarians. So going through this list in an itemized fashion would have been pretty boring. So for a complete list, I've left copies on your tables. And in the interest of discretion and time, I'm only going to cover the presidents up until World War II today. So maybe past the war era and post-war era should be a follow-up edition. So the first president was Shelton Willis Coleman. He was born in 1886 and attended and graduated from Mercer in 1910, intent on teaching. By 1916, he was serving Callaway Mills as superintendent of general education for all of the mills. That same year, he founded Southwest LaGrange School, which we now know as Berta Weathersby, with only 200 students. 3 years later, when it was taken over by LaGrange City Schools, there were over 600 students in the new building built on Forest Avenue. He died in February of 1946, just a few years before the new Coleman Library, which is now the Twin Cedars Coleman Center, was dedicated to him in 1954. The second president was Dr. Hubert Travis Quillian. He was born in Thompson, Georgia in June of 1890. He was a graduate of Elberton High School and Emory University, and his first job was in a bank in Elberton. When he served as president of the Rotary Club, he was also the director of the Young Men's Christian Association and the president of the LaGrange Welfare Association, which we know as United Way. After serving as Rotary's first secretary and second president, he would go on to serve as the president of LaGrange College from 1938 to 1948. And the Quillian Building at LaGrange College was named in his honor. And the Rotary Club established a memory book fund in his honor at the school. Next comes Dr. Wallace Henderson Clark. Dr. Clark was born in 1889, attended the Citadel, and graduated from Tulane Medical College. In 1912, he came back to LaGrange to open his medical practice. While we know him as the co-founder of Clark Holder Clinic, which he founded with Dr. James Holder in 1935, to many, he was just Wallace. At his funeral in 1955, Dr. Clark's lifelong friend, Cason Callaway Jr., gave his eulogy and said, "I have known Wallace for a long time. In fact, his father delivered me, and he was a month or two older than I, so I have known him ever since I was born. We used to play together as boys, and we were in the same grade at school." After saying Wallace was always exuberant and a little bit anti-establishment, he told stories of their time together at the Citadel and childhood memories of their days at Harwell Avenue. He finished the eulogy remembering Dr. Clark's enthusiasm and dedication, and what a significant impact those qualities had on his cancer research. Dr. Clark was responsible for reducing the death rate in patients diagnosed with melanoma to 16% in the 1950s. Put that in perspective, from over 80%. To that, Mr. Callaway said that Dr. Clark was truly a modest hero, and I shall miss him. Number 4 was Robert Hatton Lovejoy. Don't panic, I'm not going to go through all 102 of them. From here on, I've selected some of my favorites and some of the ones with the most interesting tales. Mr. Lovejoy is a personal favorite of mine because the office that was once his is now mine. So on late nights, when I'm all alone at the archives, I like to think that Mr. Lovejoy keeps me company. Mr. Lovejoy was born in White Plains, Georgia in 1877, and he received an engineering degree and a law degree from the University of Georgia in 1896 and 97. He was also on the undefeated 1896 Georgia football team that played without helmets. Don't know how they did anything after that. He was admitted to the bar in June of 1897 and started a law practice with his brother-in-law, Frank Harwell, that same year. Hatton served as both director and attorney for the LaGrange National Bank, LaGrange Savings Bank, Unity Cotton Mills, Manchester Cotton Mills. Excuse me. He represented the Atlanta-Birmingham Atlantic Railway Company, Chattahoochee Valley Railway Company. And his practice included both civil and criminal cases. But one of his most well-known cases came in July of 1941, when he stood with 5 African-American faculty of the Georgia Teachers College after Governor Talmadge had ordered their dismissal for political reasons. After that, his beliefs regarding government power evolved, and in the 1950s, he authored a book titled The Province of Federal Power, in which he spoke out against the ever-growing powers of government bureaucracy. Mr. Lovejoy was also the superintendent of Troup County Schools from 1901 to 1908. And along that same scholarship, that is how we probably know him, is by the recipients of the Lovejoy Scholarship that is named for him. In 1928 and 29, Judson James Judd Milam served as president. He was born in 1885 in Cedartown, Georgia, graduated from Miss Tally Hill School and Park Hill High School in LaGrange, and his first job was as a messenger from Western Union. He owned the Telegraph Exchange after his father and sold it to Southern Bell in 1909, remaining as manager of the Southern Bell Telephone and Telegraph Company until 1950. He was also a partner in Milam Drug Company, which is pictured here, with his brother Henry. I was a LaGrange City Councilman from 1918 to 22, chairman of the County Commissioners from 37 to 39. And he was principally responsible for having what they considered the new courthouse built. It's what we know as the juvenile court, built on a square after the previous courthouse had burned in 1936. And he is the one that is credited with having the idea of putting a park and a fountain on the square. When Judd Milam handed the gavel off to Henry Dawson Burks in July of 1929, he bragged that his presidency had been responsible for the soaring stock market. Of course, we all remember what would happen a few months later in October of 29, which only makes this part funnier. They were asked to fill out a questionnaire when they became president, and he listed his favorite book as My Pocketbook. After all of the presidents were as accomplished as these that I've listed already. And when one is this accomplished, they're often too busy to be very fun. For example, the next president, Henry Dawson, or Shorty Burks, listed his hobby as being on time. After Burks, Case and Callaway, literal books have been written for him, so I'll leave him to his biographers. And then came the Reverend Dr. Archibald Eucalyptus Dallas. He was here to serve First Presbyterian Church as pastor all the way from Ontario, Canada. They called him John, which is understandable, rather than eucalyptus. So we're going to zip through a few more. Charles Lamar Traylor was the founder of Hutchinson Traylor Insurance, now Oak Ridge, and he served as president in 32 and 33. 33 and 34 president was Roy Christian Swank. He was the owner of LaGrange Daily News and purchased the old jail building as the newspaper office. We know that building as the LaGrange Art Museum. He's shown here with several other Rotarians on a fishing trip. Then came Fuller E. Callaway Jr. He's another one we could spend an entire program on. So I'll only mention one little tidbit. He was the first LaGrange Rotary president born in the 20th century. Until this point, they'd all been born in the 19th century. Albert Lehman served in 1935 and 36. His first job was in the grocery department of Callaway Department Store. He would go on to serve as superintendent of Dixie Mills. We don't have a great deal of information on him, but we do have images of the jewelry store his father opened on the east side of Bencourt Square. And you can see it. I think there should be arrows. It's currently Fountain Gifts, I believe. They don't call it Fountain Gifts anymore. I guess that's the new old red door. Then comes George Sidney Cobb, Jr. He was born in Columbus, graduated from Emory, studied banking in New York before joining Coca-Cola in 1930. He served as president of the Coca-Cola companies his father founded and was on the board of trustees of LaGrange College, First Methodist Church. Served as a major in the Georgia State Guard, 3rd Battalion during World War II, and was the founder of the Georgia Better Farms program in 1944. He was responsible for building the Coca-Cola Hall at the corner of Broad and Lewis Streets that still stands. And a large portion of the second floor of that building was given over with kitchen facilities for use by the public for parties and meetings and such. He also bequeathed a large sum of money to establish the Cobb Archives in Valley. From 1937 to 1938 comes Ely Reeves Calloway. After coming back home from college, he was a clerk and then a manager of Callaway Department Stores, and then went on to be the treasurer of the Callaway Mills, president of LaGrange National Bank, president of LaGrange Savings Bank, served on the city council. Well, it's over and over, much like all of those before him. But one interesting fact, during World War I, he served as the chair of the Liberty Loan Drives, and in all 5 drives, Troup County was the first in the nation to subscribe its full quota. So the picture is, it was called the Parade of the Americans. It ran on April the 6th, 1918, and Mr. Calloway's wife, Lula Bessie Walker Calloway, is seen at the front representing the Red Cross in the parade to encourage World War I purchases. Dr. Emory Robert Park served as president in 1938 and 39. He was born in LaGrange in 1886 and was a physician and surgeon. He was a veteran of World War I, and he and his wife, Louise Dallas Park, donated the land for St. Mark's Episcopal Church on North Greenwood. He also built the house that was next door and is now the rectory of that church. He was not happy with where the church decided to place the actual building and sued to regain the property but lost. And afterwards, he was quoted as saying, "I have but one bit of advice that everyone should heed, regardless of anything else. Never sue the church." James Kennerly Boatwright was employed by a firm in Atlanta that did accounting work for Callaway Mills. And while working here in LaGrange, he boarded with Miss Ann Hayes and fell madly in love with her. They were married on May 29, 1918, and had one son, J.K. Jr., in 1921. Mr. Boatwright impressed Mr. Callaway so much that he was offered a position at Hillside Mills in 1923. He would go on to serve as treasurer of Callaway Mills until 1947, when he resigned to form his own accounting firm with his son. He could add 2 columns of figures at once. And someone once said to him, "When I add a column of figures, I never get the same answer twice in a row." He said, surprised, "You don't?" Don't understand that either. Lewis Price Sr. took office in 1940. He was born in Waycross, Georgia in 1905, and had a number of jobs as a young man. He had a newspaper route, delivered groceries, was a grinder for an optical company, was an office boy, sold real estate. After all of that, he decided the best route was to work with money. And in 1921, he began work for the Citizens and Southern Bank in Savannah. In 1932, he moved to LaGrange as director of the LaGrange National Bank. Eventually, Price would serve as president of Citizens and Southern Bank here in LaGrange, VP of Finance for Callaway Mills, was on the board of directors of LaGrange College. And it was that last position that offered him the new theater to be named in his honor. And finally, one last president before the outbreak of World War II was author Brandon Skin Edge Jr. Mr. Edge was born in 1905 in Newnan. He graduated from Georgia Tech and began working for Callaway Mills in 1926. He rose from the office of assistant secretary to president. He retired in 1968 as vice chairman of the board. He was always active in LaGrange civic and business circles. He was president of the Callaway Foundation, Callaway Education Association. He was director of Citizens and Southern Bank, trustee and treasurer of the West Georgia Medical Center, and chairman of the Troup County Planning Commission. And to close up, I have a few quick stats. So the last president born in the 19th century was Bill Clinton. He was born in 1893 and served as president in 1962 and 63. This is the only picture that we have of Mr. Clinton, and this one is of him and his wife, Ruth, dancing at a Rotary party. The first president born in the 20th century was Fuller E. Calloway Jr. He was born in 1907 and served from 34 to 35. He was the youngest president at 27. The second youngest is our Trey Long, who served at 30. In our research, a number of the presidents were ministers at First Presbyterian Church, although no ministers from First Baptist or First Methodist served as president. Among those that we could find their affiliation, there were 11 Baptists, 20 Methodists, 12 Presbyterians, 3 Episcopalians, 1 Catholic, and a partridge in the pear tree. As I mentioned, is that the preachers? No, that's, as I mentioned earlier, the family tree of LaGrange Rotary Club could really be better described as a tangled bush. While there have been numerous cousins, uncles, brothers, and eventually daughters and sisters, there have been 5 father-son relations, both served as president. So the first were J.K. Boatwright and his son. They served in 38-40 and 60-61. Gardner Newman served in 57-58, his son Chuck in 99. Charles Hudson in 64-65, and Charles Jr. in 2000-2001. Waits G. Henry in 69 and 70, his son George in 2015 and 16, and then Forrest Clark Jr. in 75 and 76, and his son Clark in 2001 and 2. And one final stat, I guess. It appears that all of the LaGrange College presidents have served as Rotary presidents from Dr. Quillian through Dr. McAlexander. The individual education background of these early presidents varies quite a bit. A large number of them did not pursue higher education, but of those that did, there were 3 that attended Georgia, sort of their dogs, 3 that went to Georgia Tech, 3 went to Emory, 2 went to Mercer, and there are several outliers, including one from Alabama, and a few others. So I make no promises that I'll be able to answer your questions, but I am happy to give it a try if there are any.
Ely Callaway's offspring, the one that did the Callaway golf?
Yes.
You have a son?
Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Ingrid Bergman's daughter. He also did did several things other than just Callaway golf. He opened vineyards. There's Callaway wine. He served as a Colorado State Senator, I believe. So he went off and did a lot as well.
I read in the paper recently, he's worth $4 billion.
A lot. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I noticed in 76, Clark Johnson Jr. was president. We had 2 presidents that year. And, of course, what the story was behind that.
So in 76, Mr. Tom resigned, and I was not able to find why. But that's why there ends up being 102 with listing with trip listed on there.
If I didn't feel sick in my stomach before after seeing this.
Not quite our shoes to fill, yes.
Do you know how many of those first sections you ever had direct ties to Callaway?
All of them.
Every single.
In some way, every single one of them. If they weren't at Callaway, they had spent at least some time in some position in the mills. Every single one of them.
With the exception of Reverend Dallas.
Yeah. That's why I brought Lewis.
He always gets the last word.
Well, Shannon, I hope that you will come back and we can look you.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
next
This has been
set of
fascinating.
presidents, The next set of presidents. will be
Yes,
very
you see, that's why, my heart hurts that Clark was not able to get this. Y'all, he would have known it off the top of his head, backwards and forwards. And Lewis and I have spent, Lewis particularly has spent weeks researching just to catch up with what Clark knew. So it's been fascinating, it's been very interesting, and I think that we would very much enjoy continuing all the way through. So, thank you.
Greatest appreciation and recognition of your speaking today. We'll make a donation in your honor to Polio Plus, which is Rotary's initiative to eradicate polio worldwide. Trip, come on up. Of course, we had the annual banquet and the official turnover, but I did have one last thing to give him. One thing that you're not allowed to lose, and that's the P.O. Box key. Take this to hand that over to you. You can either keep that for yourself or give that to someone you really trust to make sure that that's not lost. And since this is, we're going to gavel out of this one, but we don't, our next meeting is actually Saturday, and you won't have a gavel, so I'm going to let you gavel us out and gavel us in for Saturday morning. At what time? Where at? LSBA. Be there.
Big thanks to Ken. One more thanks to
Anything else for the good of the group? If not, we're adjourned.
Yes,